Great, thanks very much. I want to thank the ICT for asking me to come back yet again. It's, I think, close to my 19th time doing this one. And unfortunately, my dear friend Steve Stern is not with us today. Usually he sits right there and he yells at me. You know, we're both from the Upper East Side of New York, so that's a way of life. It's a show of affection and love. But he says if I don't say something new, he's going to get really mad. And my good friend Eitan comes up with questions that are really good questions that then I got to think about and answer. So there's a sort of dual challenge. And you know, to add to the introduction, one of the things that's taken a lot of my time the last 2 years is I chaired the cyber group for the Trump-Pence transition team, and I had a couple of my colleagues from that, Dave and Sophia are here, and many of the things that General Stewart pointed out are some critical vulnerabilities and questions that we asked at the time of the start of the administration, and we've been thinking about and looking at ways to actually craft programs to address some of this, which is not my talk today. But thank you for readdressing these important critical things that, you know, both our nation and the nation of Israel really has to face, and in some areas there are some programs underway, and unfortunately in others there really are not. What I'm going to do today, which is sort of new and different, is talk a little bit about social media, but just briefly about social media and more directly about some research that's just been getting underway this year. Part of it at the University of California, Los Angeles, at the Semel Institute of Neuroscience in the psychiatry department, and it's been supported by a team at the ICT, which is ongoing, and this is sort of the first presentation of any of this, and it's all fairly radical and new, and if you've got any complaints or questions, really let me know, because this is like a road test of some of these slides. They were only given to the director of the agency 2 days ago, and they're still in sort of rough form. One of the good things about the conference this year is everybody's talking about social media, so I'm actually going to limit what I say about this. One of my jobs in life over at the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, the home of the internet and all of this horrible stuff that we're seeing, has been to sort of look at the evolution of this. I'm getting old. I go back a long way. Historically, I signed some documents that actually made some of this happen. The work I did actually could have been performed by a trained monkey. So, but in any event, where are we now? What I'm going to do is go fairly quickly through like the first 30 slides, because Eitan says, you know, they're all seen. He's absolutely right. No, you're absolutely right. You know. The first one, which is sort of historical thing, I don't like to pass on it quickly, is so we're in the in the land of Israel, which goes back to the ancient times. Where are we right now? We've gone through, we started out here, thousands of years ago with an oral tradition and nothing written, and we've, very recently, historically, if you think about it, come into a time we call the internet era, started by the ARPANET in 1969. The web browser, which you all use sort of 5,000 times a day, and the area of sort of digital everything. So what we're dealing with now is historically fairly new. I'm trying to figure. I want number 9. Okay. One of the things that is worth thinking about is, apart from the technology that you've got in your hands and the economics, that is, everything's sort of free once you buy your smartphone or your computer, is that there's a major change in the culture of the world and the way people interact. It's probably the most radical change in culture probably since 1500. How people communicate and interact, and this methods of social interaction we're calling social networking or social media, depending on which term you like. And we have media that were never anticipated by anybody at DARPA or any of the other scientific or research places that developed this. So what we're dealing with now is a very, very new phenomenon. And in the area of terrorism, if we look at, for example, even the model of 9/11, which wasn't, in my lifetime, all that long ago, we've got a very, very different model today. Things are largely based on interactions via social media, technologies that were not in wide use at the time of 9/11, and we're going to an era, and what I'm going to really spend most of the time talking about today is the use of social media, not only just by terrorists per se, but by use of terrorists and terrorist organizations for the process of recruitment and radicalization, which we do not know a great deal about from the scientific perspective. Okay, so to make things short and quick and to show you what is new and what we've been doing, before this program got started, Dr. London, who's been in charge of the program, gave a little presentation in one of the panels last year. One of the things that we do not know from a scientific standpoint is what really takes place in the brain as a process of radicalization. It's a question that was raised by myself and some of others who worked on the 9/11 Commission, and at the time I was married to one of the world's leading neuroscientists, and the question we raised, which we've just begun to answer from a scientific perspective, is when one or a person is exposed to the various kinds of social media, what are the actual processes that take place which would encourage someone to become a radical, to become a terrorist, and to affect and really adopt what is in the media being presented. And when I'm talking about neuroscience, I'm really talking about cognitive neuroscience, not psychology, not soothsaying, not basket weaving, using some of the tools that have been developed for neuroscience and understanding of human behavior in other domains. And as it happens, I'm going to show you examples of some of the technology that have been employed the last year. Most of these have been developed with funding originally out of the National Institutes of Health for the study of addictive behavior and drug taking and some other disorders. But the understanding of how neural circuits operate, we have for the first time applied these tools to the social media that are being used for radicalization. And this is something that has never been done before. What I'm going to talk about for a couple of minutes is some path-breaking work that has been initially funded by my old organization, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, and that's a caveat. I'm not responsible, or the government's not responsible for anything I'm saying, given the fact that I went to law school. You probably shouldn't believe anything I say, but in any event, what we're trying to understand here is the actual neural mechanisms underlying the responses to what's going on when someone sees these kinds of media. And the idea is, if we understand the actual processes going on, how can we then work with our partners to develop what's called counter-messaging strategy, or in the social media space, counter what's being done to recruit and radicalize people. So this initial project, which is basically winding up in the first stage right now, is composed of a couple things. We're looking to identify specific brain regions and neural circuits underlying affinity, or the extent to which the terrorist narratives in social media are delivered via social media, and what actually takes place when someone is seeing these materials and videos. And we have some actually fabulous videos that were used here that were developed by ICT, some of the people working with Eitan and Stevie and the people here. So what we were doing is taking a group of subjects. We started out with over 1,000 subjects that were recruited with specific software system, Mechanical Turk. Ultimately, some were disqualified. We wound up running 47 sets of studies in both a fMRI scanner, and what you're looking at here on the left side is a 3T scanner, which is a fairly gargantuan machine that runs short $5 million. And for the first time, we actually did something else. We connected it to a device built in Canada that looked at eye tracking in terms of pupil size, dilation, and blinking, and built a fairly sophisticated software package so that it all is integrated together. I'm going to show you a picture of that in a second. So the person watching the videos goes into this gargantuan 3 Tesla scanner. The eye tracker is attached to the head, and they are then shown the terrorist recruiting media. I'm not going to run a lot of the videos here, but just an example, thank you, people at ICT, for getting us the media that were needed to make all of this work. Again, another picture of, the idea, can these cognitive tools visualize what's going on in terms of brain function to help us design counter media? The question we asked, and we didn't have the answer going into this, which is the sort of stuff DARPA does. They ask a sophisticated question, maybe it works and maybe it doesn't. Can a actual imaging technique like functional magnetic resonance imaging, which is used for a variety of things, both in terms of research and medical diagnosis, can you track brain responses to the messages guiding the development of counter messages? And like I say, we've also integrated an eye tracking system, so you're getting both the data from the fMRI scanner and you're getting the eye tracking data concurrently and integrating all of it into a database which allows you to understand what's going on. Just a quick picture of this monstrosity that was put together. It looks like a large collection of laptops, which it is, that run the scanner, that are running the eye tracker, that are doing some of the composite analysis. So it's a sort of a complex system that was put together for this particular project that was run out at the Semel Institute at UCLA. And the answer is, it works. What you're seeing here are a set of composite slices. This is the composite result of 48 brain scans, and I think there are 31 slices. For any of you who are doctors or neurosurgeons, something, and understand how fMRI works, you're essentially looking like a salami if you slice through the brain at 31 steps. These are the particular slices within the brain that you're seeing, and you see the particular brain regions where you can see the red regions that identify that where there is an agreement with the social media that is being displayed to the participant who's in the scanning system. The question is, when they are seeing these types of media, some specific areas of the brain actually do light up. And there's some additional slides I'm not going to get to today where we identified like 15 different particular brain regions and the extent to which they all react. This is a slightly different version of what I just showed you that's actually showing the correlation of actual brain activation, viewing the videos that we were provided, and essentially, if you like medicine and that sort of things, we've identified the precise region that lights up is the posterior occipital lobe. I mean, we know in the human brain exactly what is lighting up when people are seeing these kinds of materials. This was never ever done before, and we actually understand how people react to these kinds of materials, and we understand what the neural correlates are of looking at this. I mean, this is not, some psychologist sitting there with a notepad. This is some fairly sophisticated equipment actually looking at real-time brain function. And just another, if you like data, the correlation between what's going on in the right half of the amygdala with the agreement to the social media. And the bottom line here is, for this phase of the research, we answered the basic question is, yes, we can find what the neural correlates are within the human brain triggered by social media related to terrorism or, terrorist recruitment. Okay, and so what do we do now? We've answered that question. What do we do in terms of using this knowledge to actually try and develop and inform a counter-messaging strategy? Well, I'm not a medical person. I just buried into this, but I'm a policy wonk. I started with the Nixon administration in '69, and I've got a new book out on it if you'd like to buy it. But in any event, go to Amazon. You can.
Marketing.
Hey, marketing is important here. But in any event, one of the things, we do have a new national strategy for counterterrorism with the Trump administration. And this is a key component of what our country, the United States, wants to do. And the other thing, which I probably don't have on this slide, is that we've got some very specific language in the 2017 Defense Authorization Act, which permits and gets the United States Department of Defense involved in developing this strategy, and our colleagues down at Special Operations Command have an enormous interest in working the counter-messaging area. So, you know, where are we going to go with this? The next step in this is to actually do another full-blown set of tests and some technology development. One of the objectives when we're here this week is to do a larger sample of people, largely taken from people that are either terrorists or potential terrorists, and we'll be working with ICT and probably going to run those scans in Israel for a variety of reasons on a larger population. And as we're doing that, looking at what specific types of counter messages, you know, the government and our commercial partners can develop to essentially counter what people are seeing in the social media so that we're doing it effectively. Our US government partners are going to be the Special Operations Command, Cybercom, possibly the State Department, and we've been working to develop a couple of commercial partners in the same space, and here we're talking to the Google people, mainly the Jigsaw Research Operation, and the people at Facebook who have developed a very significant counterterrorism capability. So that's where this is going. The last comment, you know, I make it, we're thinking about it, the analog that I would make and to think about is, you know, for probably 2,000 years we've been doing surgery on people, largely uninformed, you know, and, you know, I can remember when your relative was going into the hospital for exploratory surgery. You know, you don't hear that anymore. You know, from about 1890 on, we've developed, you know, imaging techniques. You started, you know, X-ray, very old one. You've got a series of technologies now, fMRI, MRI, CT scans, PET scans. My wife's one of the co-inventors of PET, so I've got to mention that. But you've got a series of very, very high-resolution technology so you can see what's going on in the human body and inform yourself before you saw somebody open. Well, why don't we take in these same technologies and take a look at the human brain and inform ourselves what's going on so that we can really target what's going on when we try and develop counter strategies in social media. So that's what we're about, and, you know, I'm here to answer any questions I can, and hopefully I've gotten off the stage quick enough.